retire on by 2030? Well, today we're going to be showing you some numbers we've never showed you before. Most of you guys would be familiar with the Bitcoin retirement calculator made by Jimbo that we've used before in the past. But today we're going to be breaking down 3 different retirement strategies that Michael Saylor has outlined in his new Bitcoin retirement calculator that is completely open source and available on GitHub. The name of this new calculator is Bitcoin 24. And it doesn't matter whether you're all in on Bitcoin or whether you have a small 5% allocation, you're going to want to stick around to see all the different calculations we're going to be running today. So, of course, I'm going to share my screen first. Opti, if you could pull it up, please. And Opti and our guest for today. You guys are familiar with this one. This is When Moon. We've used it in the past, and it's very simple. You put in your Bitcoin stack, you put in your desired income, and then it gives you a rough estimation on when you'd be able to retire with your Bitcoin. The thing is, though, is that Michael Saylor actually just released a new calculator called Bitcoin 24. And essentially what it is, it's an Excel sheet, which is completely open source, and it allows you to plug in some numbers. So here is Saylor describing it himself. This is a tweet. He says, Bitcoin 24 is an open source macro model forecasting asset growth and Bitcoin adoption over the next 21 years, along with micro models to evaluate various Bitcoin strategies for individuals, corporations, institutions, and nation states. So we're going to show that to you guys today. It's going to be a little clunky because it's Excel. So I'm going to have to share my screen. Opti, if you could pull it up, please, and let me know if you could see it.
Gotcha.
Awesome. Okay. So here it is, everybody. Here is the open source Excel calculator that Michael Saylor has made public. You can go check it out on his Twitter. We actually have a link for it down below. And you can plug in different
zoom in a little bit, Nico, because it's kind of small.
So you can plug in different numbers based on what your strategy is, and I'll break it down for you guys. So you have the normie strategy. The normie strategy is essentially that their portfolio, they have 0% of their portfolio converted to Bitcoin, excess earnings 0%, and their savings rate is roughly 25%. A BTC 10% is someone who converts 10% of their portfolio to Bitcoin, excess earnings 10%. A Bitcoin maxi, a BTC maxi, how Saylor calls it, converts 80% of their portfolio to Bitcoin. What me and Opti are, double maxis, 100% of your portfolio to Bitcoin. And a triple maxi is someone who converts not only 100% of their portfolio to Bitcoin, but also starts to leverage some of their assets in order to pick up even more Bitcoin. Now, what's really awesome about this calculator is it allows us to plug in different things. I'm assuming if you're tuning into this show, I'm going to make an assumption that you're a Bitcoin maxi. How Saylor defines a Bitcoin maxi is someone who has 80% of their portfolio in Bitcoin. So let's mess around with his model a little bit. And by the way, guys, everything is multiplied by 1,000. So when you see this number right here, or this is so when you see this number right here, it's not 60, it's 60K. So when you see this number right here, assets excluding Bitcoin, let's make an assumption, Opti. What do you think the average savings for an American right now is? Let's say.
Well, I looked at this yesterday. So the U.S. debt clock says $10,000.
So let's put in 10, right? So let's put in 10. Let's do earnings. So how much is this person making a year?
I don't know. What's the average income? Isn't it like 50K?
So it's like 60 to 70K in the United States. So let's put in 60K. And now here is the question that I want to address from the title, which is 0.1 Bitcoin. And now let's plug it in. If you're a BTC maxi, you have 80% of your portfolio in Bitcoin. Let's see how much Bitcoin you'll end up with by the year 2030. So with his Michael Saylor's base case, his base case, by the way, is $13 million per coin by the year 2045. His bear case is $2.9 million Bitcoin by the year 2045. And his bull case is $49 million Bitcoin by the year 2045. So for the sake of just breaking this down, we're going to use the base case. The base case is $13 million per coin by the year 2045. Now, what's really interesting to me, check this out, Opti. So if you're a BTC Maxi, you're putting 80% of your portfolio in Bitcoin, you're putting 80% of your excess earnings into Bitcoin. It kind of points it out for you, right? So it shows you over the years what your Bitcoin count is. So in 2024, it would be 0.2. In 2025, it would be 0.3. In 2030, it would be 0.6. In 2035, it would be 0.6. In 2040, it would be 0.7. And 2045, it would be 0.7. It's going to be continuously harder and harder to obviously stack Bitcoin because it's obviously going to become more and more expensive. Now, what's really interesting to me, check this out, ladies and gentlemen, is this ridiculous chart. So what is 0.1 Bitcoin right now? It's roughly $6,190. So according to Michael Saylor's base case, maybe 2030 is, not your year. Maybe 2030, you're not going to have enough Bitcoin. But take a look at the year 2045. If Michael Saylor's base case comes true, that means by the year 2045, if you're taking the Bitcoin Maxi strategy, which is converting 80% of your portfolio into Bitcoin, putting 80% of your excess earnings into Bitcoin, you end up with 0.7 Bitcoin, and that roughly equates to 0.7 Bitcoin, which is roughly $9 million per coin by the year. Sorry, $9 million US by the year 2045. That is absolutely insane. But that's most of us listening to Simply Bitcoin. I think we're all maxis.
Do the double maxi real quick before you do the normie.
No, but okay, you want to do the double maxi?
Yeah, just let's see the numbers here.
Let's do the double maxi. Okay,
you have to go over it over. Just the final number.
So the final number here, I think it overlaps a little bit. Sorry, guys. So I'm gonna have to kind of read over this. This is an Excel sheet after all. Oh, that's too small. You'll end up with 0.9, and I believe that is $10 million or $11 million.
Okay, now do the normie strategy. Okay. I'm just doing it for the audience.
Let's do the normie strategy. So the normie strategy basically infers that you are not going to be adding any more of your portfolio or any more of your excess earnings into Bitcoin, meaning you just buy 0.1 Bitcoin and you sit on it. And let's check out the numbers for the upcoming years. So by the year 2035, 0.1 Bitcoin would equate to $1 million, according to Saylor. And by the year 2044, according to Saylor, 0.1 Bitcoin would equate to $2 million. So if you believe Saylor and his model, right? And we'll get to in the numbers segment how Saylor has accurately predicted things in the past, right? So this sounds absolutely crazy, I'm sure, to so many people, but it would sound absolutely crazy if I told you back in 2013 that Bitcoin would be at 70K in the year 2024. You would have laughed me out of the room. You would have actually done everything in your power to accumulate as much Bitcoin as possible. So looking into the future, a lot of this stuff might sound insane, but is it really? So yeah, you could technically be a millionaire, according to Saylor, by the year 2035, and it would only cost you $6,215 today. Absolutely crazy, huh? I love this calculator. Been kind of playing around with it. But I think, like I said, most of us fit into the BTC Maxi category, which is
double maxi,
which is putting the majority of our excess earnings into Bitcoin, and obviously 100% of our portfolio into Bitcoin. So I do want to kind of mess around with the numbers a little bit And I do want to take advantage of our guests, and I want to introduce who they are. So Opti, could you? Oh, sorry about that, guys. We have a little bit of a hiccup in production because we are showing you guys.
I was going to do the production.
We are going to be.
You rugged me.
My drop ball. But yeah, it's. I am showing an Excel sheet, so it's a little bit. It's a little bit different than what we normally do. I do want to take advantage of our guests for today. This is Christine and Graham. Christine was a huge help for me while the Simply Bitcoin YouTube channel was deplatformed. And that is something that she focuses on in her business. And this is her husband, Graham, as well. He originally reached out to me on Nostr, out of all places, and he was able to connect me with Christine. So in honor of them helping me through very, very dark times, you guys have no idea how dark that weekend was. For those 4 days that the channel was down, Christine was there. She was a helping hand, and she guided me throughout this whole process. So I want to actually ask them to, let's have fun with this Excel sheet, and let's plug in some numbers, and also let's get the chat involved as well. Opti, if you could share the screen.
Said put 1 Bitcoin.
Okay, if you could share the screen again, Opti. So let's start off with our guests, Christine, Graham. Do you want to plug in some numbers here in terms of let's say yearly earnings, the amount of Bitcoin you're starting with, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, the $6,000 number was interesting because just this morning I was looking at one of my wallets, and it was a watch-only wallet, and I think I deleted all the other files, but of course I had the seed words on a piece of paper, so I was able to restore my $6,000 this morning. So, I knew I had the seed words. I just waited to the last minute, or my final try was that, and it worked. So I don't know. What number would you like to plug in there? Let's say
$5,000.
$5,000. Okay.
So $5,000 in earnings, or what are we talking about here?
I think Bitcoin, the Bitcoin amount.
Okay, so $5,000 in Bitcoin. So that would be roughly 0.09.
No, 0.09.
Yeah, 0.09.
No, 0.09. 0.09 is 9 million sets.
Oh, thank you, Opti. So let's plug in that number. And that's not, I don't think it goes that low. I don't think it goes that low. So let's do something above.
Do 0.21.
0.21. Okay, so 0.21. So 21 million sats. And this is with a normie. So normie strategy is someone, again, that doesn't put any excess earnings into BTC. They just have 0.2. They're just going to be holding on to it to the year 2030 and then the year 2045. According to Saylor's model, by the year 2033, 0.21 Bitcoin would make you a millionaire. And according to Saylor's model, by the year 2045, 0.2 Bitcoin would make you worth $4 million. I mean, that's freaking insane. Any other numbers you guys want to play with?
How about $3,000 a month?
$3,000 a month. Okay, so let's do the earnings. What is $3,000 times 12?
36.
What is it?
3,000 times 12 is 36,000.
So 36,000. So let's put it in. $36,000 in earnings. Is this person a maxi? Are they converting their earnings into Bitcoin?
It looks like it.
Okay, so let's do, this person is a maxi. They're converting their earnings into Bitcoin. They're earning $36,000 a year. Implied tax rate of 20%. The earnings growth is 5% year over year. They have 10K in savings other than Bitcoin, and their starting Bitcoin is 0.21. So they would end up with 0.6 Bitcoin by the year 2045. And check this out. They would end up with $8 million, according to Saylor's open source GitHub Excel calculator. That is the power of Bitcoin. That is absolutely insane. That is bonkers to me. This is crazy.
All right, Nico. Now let's do what everyone in the chat is. 1 Bitcoin. We can leave the earnings. Double maxi. This is the real fun.
So double maxi. So what me and Opti are, I would consider myself a triple maxi, honestly. So, because I'm full degen, 100% plus. Anyway, so starting number of Bitcoin is 1 Bitcoin. Excess, how much excess cash does this person
Just do
have?
that 36K.
So they have 36K in earnings, or how much?
XX.
So like excess assets. So how much assets do they have unrelated to Bitcoin?
What's the difference
zero?
between?
Sure.
Sure.
What was
They're
the
all in on
average for the
Bitcoin.
American? The average you said
like
was 10K. So
yeah,
let's,
yeah. Okay,
let's stick with
that.
10K. So we stick. Okay, so starting with 1 Bitcoin, they have excess assets other than Bitcoin is roughly $10,000. That includes real estate, equities, et cetera, et cetera. Their earnings are $36,000 a year, with an implied tax rate of 20%. So this person would have, they would have 1.1 Bitcoin if they did that for a year. By 2030, they would have 1.4 Bitcoin. And by the year 2045, they would have 1.5 Bitcoin. Now, their net assets, holy shit, they would be worth $20 million.
Let's go.
By 2045. And by 2031, it would be implied that they would be worth $1 million, which perfectly correlates with the $1 million prediction by 2030, which is what a lot of people are anticipating. So any more numbers you want to play the chat? What are they telling you, Opti?
They're doing like 2 BTC, but it's just double it. So let me see.
Let's double it. Do we want to increase the earnings? Because I think most people here earn more than 36,000.
Yeah, what did we say the average was? It's like 50, 60K?
50, 60K. So let's do 60K, 20% tax, excess assets of $10,000. And let's say this person has 2 Bitcoin. So if they keep doing double maxi, a double maxi is defined as someone who converts 100% of their portfolio into BTC. This is what me and Opti do, or try to do. Excess earnings converted 100% into BTC. And their savings rate is implied at 25%. So with the year 2024, if they did that for a year, they would end up with 2.1. By 2030, they would end up with 2.6. And by 2045, they would end up with 2.8 Bitcoin. Their net worth, however, holy shit, I believe that number is 37. It is cut off a little bit, but let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger, actually. No, it's cut off, unfortunately. But 31 million by the year 2044. That is nuts, dude.
Okay, Nico. We did get one request in the chat. So go back up to the numbers. We'll do double maxi. 1 Bitcoin with 0. What was this? What do you say? 1 BTC with no earnings, please.
1 BTC with no earnings. Okay. And what about excess assets?
Just maybe 0. Just do 0.
So let's
all in on Bitcoin. All in on 1 Bitcoin.
All in on 1 Bitcoin. Okay, so 1 Bitcoin, they just have 1 Bitcoin, no excess, nothing, no nothing. They would end up with, by 2044, $11 million and $13 million if Saylor's base case holds.
Interesting. Hey, Nico, did you put the link in the description? Because people are asking.
The link is in the video description, and we're also going to put the link in the live chat as well. Opti, could you stop sharing screen so it doesn't look? Let me know when you do that.
You're good.
Okay, awesome. So what I'll do is I'll put the link to Saylor's tweet in the live chat so you guys could do some of the math yourselves. But yeah, this is incredibly interesting. And Opti, if you can share the screen once again, I do want to cover some of these forecasts as well. So where he's getting, let me know when it's up.
You're good.
Okay. So, Saylor does different cases, right? So the bear case actually is 3.2. And he's assuming that Bitcoin's going to be worth it's going to be a $68 trillion market cap. The base case is going to be worth 13.4 million, with a $281 trillion market cap. And then the bull case, the 1,032 trillion, with a price of Bitcoin 4.2 million per Bitcoin. And you can all mess with this. So you can actually plug in your own numbers. Now, the base case essentially assumes that the annual appreciation rate is 50%. However, that 50% annual appreciation rate actually decreases over time. So next year, instead of it being 50%, it will go down to 47%. The year after that, 45%, 42%. And then it kind of levels out at roughly 20% by the year 2037. So these are all numbers that you can play with depending on how bullish you are, what you're trying to speculate, and this will allow you to kind of plan the future. Also, this is really cool too. It shows you the total global assets. So when you look at it by this point, it doesn't sound too crazy, right? Because if you look at it, real estate is the bulk of this, bonds would be the bulk of this, equities would be the bulk of this, currencies would be the bulk of this. Bitcoin would only be a small percentage of this. For the audio listeners, I'll break it down. So real estate by the year 2045 would be 1,365 trillion. Bonds would be 835 trillion. Equity would be 150 trillion. Currency would be 495 trillion. BTC would be only 280 trillion of that whole total addressable market cap. Art would be 110 trillion and gold would be 45 trillion. So, I mean, if you break it down like that, it doesn't sound too radical and we could actually change it up, right? Let's make this a little bit bigger so it shows. I don't want to mess this up either. There we go. By the year 2030, it's pretty conservative. So real estate is 495 trillion, bonds 400 trillion, equity 205 trillion, currency 180 trillion, art 30 trillion, gold 20 trillion, BTC 10 trillion. A $10 trillion BTC would put Bitcoin roughly almost at $1 million per coin. So I mean, it doesn't sound inconceivable at all either. These are pretty, this is pretty conservative. We could also, you could do the bear case as well. It kind of changes the numbers, but I mean, bear case by the year 2045, that's still incredibly bullish. So anyways, guys, I thought I would share this tool for you guys. It also has corporations, it also has institutions, and it allows you to see how Bitcoin could potentially benefit your financial situation. I thought it was fascinating when I first ran into that calculator. Anyways, Opti, some thoughts before we move on to the number segment. In the number segment, guys, I'm going to make the case for you guys that Michael Saylor isn't crazy. I'm going to make the case for you guys that Michael Saylor has predicted these types of pivotal moments in the past before. He wrote a book back in 2012 called The Mobile Wave, and it predicted the fact that computing would be condensed to your hands, essentially, right? That back in the 90s, the theory was that everyone at home would have a computer. That theory proved to be right. Where that theory was wrong was the assumption that the computer would have a keyboard and a screen. The computer ended up being your smartphone, right? So he predicted back in 2012 what the significance of what would happen to the world where everyone would essentially have a mobile computer in their hands. And he also predicted what companies would be most benefiting from this mobile wave. He predicted Apple, he predicted Google, and he predicted, I believe, a handful of others. And that, by the way, if you invested in those companies back in 2011, 2012, that's when they just released the iPhone. And just to give you guys an idea, Apple makes the majority of their money from iPhones, right? So you would be getting a great deal. I believe the stock 1000x or something like that. It was something crazy, right? So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the segment. We left you guys the link in the video description. and we put it in the chat as well. Had fun with it. It's completely open source. You can access it. Of course, Saylor created this himself. I thought you guys would find it interesting because we've been playing around with the Jimbo calculator. Now Saylor has his own open source Bitcoin calculator. Opti, any final thoughts before we move on to the numbers?
Well, my first thought is Saylor's got some grade A hopium. That is great. Love to see those models.
Yeah, I know.
Pretty conservative. I'm trolling here. Obviously, even also kind of jumping into on some Saylorisms. He's got the famous quote of like, all your models are broken. Obviously, it's not like a Saylor quote directly, but he's one of those guys that's been propagating that a lot. And I would kind of agree. I think obviously we don't know where the Bitcoin price is going, but it is fun to kind of speculate on what your holdings is and, go down the timeline and be like, okay, what will my worth potentially be worth in the future? And on that note, obviously it makes you feel good. The dopamine rush is like, yes, I'm going to be rich. I'm going to escape the rat race and escape the matrix and all the memes that we talk about constantly. But I think the silver lining of this is this idea of like, okay, just speculate where the wealth and the price of Bitcoin might go. And today, in today's terms, think about how your self-custody setup is, and think about whether it can, withstand the test of time. And if you don't have a good self-custody setup right now, maybe you need to, 10x, 100x the amount of purchasing power you have today, and then reconsider what your self-custody setup should be. So if you have, say you've been stacking and you're like, man, I only have 10 million sats. I don't really care. I'm just going to leave it on a hot wallet on my phone. Using these numbers, you're like, okay, maybe I need to reconsider this and get myself a hardware wallet. Maybe I need to consider putting my, one coin into a multi-sig setup. Like, I think these are the thoughts that I personally are having watching this. Is like, okay, these are some good tools, not to just kind of get that dopamine hopium of like, oh, I'm going to be rich in the future. It's kind of like, okay, well, this is my holdings now. If these models do work out, is my self-custody setup going to be secure enough for me to, handle that type of pressure and that much purchasing power in the future? And so that, I think that's kind of like a secondary effect of this that you guys should be thinking about. But actually, Nico, there was one point there where you were giving us the numbers of the 0.7 in what was it, like 2041 or 2045 or whatever. And I don't know if you guys saw me in the video, guys, but I got a dagger to the heart, because in my early days in Bitcoin, I lost 0.7 Bitcoin, and now it's like you're telling me it's like $9 million. I'm like, oh my God, like, don't tell me this. I try not to think about it, but today I'm like, for the first time in a long time thought about it. I'm like, damn, like, really, I lost $9 million. Like,
so and then let's address this too as well. And Opti, perhaps I have to pull up the screen as well, which is everyone, the people are just joining in the live stream right now, and they're trying to figure out like, what is the number? Let's do it. Beachy's saying, can you get to the point? Let's plug it in. What is Opti? Let me know when the screen is shared.
You're not sharing.
Is it not pulling up?
No.
Okay, here we go. Let's try that.
All right, it's up. All right, flip it over.
Here we go. Awesome.
I got you.
All right, Beachy and new people joining to the live stream. It all depends on, it all depends on the number, right? So, like, what are we talking about here, Beachy? Hit us with the number. Are we talking about 0.1 BTC? Are we talking about 0.5 BTC? Are we talking about 1 BTC? Because that changes the also, entire Nico, math out of this.
What's the number that we've been using for the amount you need to retire? Was it like $10 million or something like that?
I would say like in the West, you need like 4 or 5 million to retire. Like if you're in your 20s or 30s. Yeah. So, but again, with 1 BTC currently 60,000, you'll be worth more than 10 million if Saylor's model holds by the year 2044, and you'll be a millionaire by 2030, 2031.
So half a coin 2030. So
half a coin by 2030, I think that would be like $500,000.
You just said one coin is 10 mil, right?
So one coin is 10 mil by 2045.
Oh, 45. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, guys.
So 2.1. Do 2.1. I think that
2.1 Bitcoin. All right, let's do that. 2.1. According to Saylor's model,
2030. Do 2030.
by 2030, it will be worth 1 million. By 2035, it will be worth 4 million. And by the year 2045, it will be worth 28 million.
All right. So based on Saylor's, you need about 10 Bitcoin.
Yeah. So based on Saylor's, you need roughly, let's do the math real quick. 10 Bitcoin. So if you want to retire, yep, you need roughly 10 Bitcoin right now. If you want to retire by 2030, you'll have $6 million. And that's his base case. And that's also assuming that you're a normie. So you're not investing more of your earnings into Bitcoin, because that changes the whole conversation. So if you're a Bitcoin maxi and you're investing 80% of your earnings, and let's say you're making the average earnings of an American in the United States, then the conversation kind of changes. Bitcoin just becomes so expensive. But you will end up with half a Bitcoin more if you're a Bitcoin maxi. Anyways, I'm going to end it with that segment. It was quite long, but I hope you guys found it useful. Again, all the information is in the chat, the open source calculator. Feel free to use it. Feel free to plug in the numbers. There's a bull case, there's a bear case, there's a base case. So have fun with it. But anyways, let's start the show. And first, I do want to bring up our lead sponsor, of course, bitcoinwell.com. Best place to build your automatic self-custody Bitcoin stack. Buy real Bitcoin, enable your independence with the fastest and safest way to buy Bitcoin in Canada, the USA. To get started, you put in your email address. Takes about 2 to 5 minutes to get verified. And bada bing, bada boom, you're ready to buy automatic self-custody Bitcoin. What does that mean? That means that when you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, it's automatic self-custody, meaning the Bitcoin is never on the platform. As soon as the funds clear, it goes straight to your self-custody Bitcoin wallet address. Also, when you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, you earn Bitcoin Well points, and you could use those points towards the Bitcoin Wishing Well contest. So we're going to do that for you guys right now. If you have your Lightning wallets ready, first person to scan the QR code has an opportunity to win up to 1 million sats. Today, the grand prize is 500 Satoshis. If you use promo code simplybtc, again, simplybtc, you get 3 tosses into the Bitcoin Wishing Well, absolutely free. All right, everybody, let's get to the numbers. All right, everybody, I want to tell you guys about our sponsor, Stamp Seed. So we're hearing about the year 2045, right? You want to make it over to the finish line. You want to get to the year 2045 with your seed phrase. I mean, we just heard a story from Graham literally saying that, holy cow, he lost his access to his Bitcoin, but thank God for his seed phrase and he was able to recover it. You want to store your seed phrase properly. And the way that you do that is not by writing it down on a piece of paper. You want to literally proof of work, stamp your seed into a plate of titanium, which is going to survive the test of time. This is waterproof. This is fireproof. Your dog's probably not going to want to eat a plate of titanium. If you want your seed to last all the way till 2045, you want to get yourself a Stamp Seed titanium seed phrase storage kit. They put a blowtorch to it. They put it in salt water. They did everything that you can think of, and it comes with everything you need to stamp your seed into titanium. The letter stamping tools, the hammer, the anvil, everything. Head over to stampseed.com today to get started and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is 62,270. Sats per dollar, 1,606. Block height, 864,148. Realized monetary inflation, 1.32%. Market capitalization, 1.23 trillion. Bitcoin versus gold market cap, 6.61%. Money supply, 19,762,746 BTC. Percentage issued, 94.1%. Anyways, we were talking about Michael Saylor's calculator in the beginning, and I could see how a lot of people are hesitant. You're looking at me and you're saying, Nico, are you trying to tell me that $6,000 investment today in 21 years could potentially be worth millions of dollars? What are you talking about? You're going to laugh me out of the room. You're going to call me crazy. We have to remember who Michael Saylor is. And again, if you want to learn from the past, You have to study it. Michael Saylor correctly predicted the mobile wave. In fact, he released this book back in 2012. The Mobile Wave, How Mobile Intelligence Will Change Everything, is a 2012 nonfiction book by Michael Saylor. The Mobile Wave provides an analysis of then current trends in mobile technology from the point of view of a scholar of the history of science. The book argues that mobile devices will become essential tools for life in the modern day, changing how businesses operate and how industries and economies are powered. Now, you tell me, back in the day, cell phones were very basic, right? So in 2012, he correctly predicted that mobile devices would become essential tools for life in the modern day. Is that correct, Opti? I would ask you that question.
Yes, I'm a cyborg. I can't live without my phone.
Did he predict that correctly? Yes. I'm going to pass it on to Christine. Christine, did Saylor predict the mobile wave correctly?
Looks like it.
Looks like it. And it seems like Graham agrees as well. I heard him in the background. Anyways, I'm going to play you guys a clip of Saylor, who recently joined our boys, G Money Pepe, from Badlands Media. They just had me on a couple weeks ago. They just had Saylor on. And let's check out
Rug Pull Radio.
Appreciate it, Opti. And let's check out what Saylor had to say. And he does reference his book, The Mobile Wave, and how he used the same logic to predict what's going to be happening with Bitcoin. Let's check it out.
It's a fun book to write. A lot of the principles still hold. You know, it kind of prepared me. The way to make money off the mobile wave was buy Apple, buy Amazon, buy Facebook, buy Google, right? They were the big winners. But it prepared me for the Bitcoin wave. And the Bitcoin wave is the digital transformation of energy. The mobile wave was the digital transformation of communication and relationship and digital transformation of handheld devices and the consumer experience, etc. And all the money that's been made in the past 50 years, right? They're all these big digital transformations. And inevitably, the people being attacked always don't even know they're being attacked. They dismiss it, or it's just too late before they can react to it. And that's why you want to read this stuff. You want to be ready, and then you want to figure out how to surf the next wave.
Surf the next wave. So that's the question that I have for you guys. Are you guys prepared to surf the next wave? This is someone who correctly predicted the mobile wave, how cell phones were going to be a quintessential part of life. And then also, how do you make money from it? You invested in the companies that were developing the software for the phones. So iOS, Apple, and Android for Google, right? Those were the two big winning bets. If you invested in those companies back in 2012, you would have made a fortune due to the upcoming mobile wave. So right now, right, we're in the first innings of the separation of money and state, the Bitcoin wave. And the question that I have for you guys is, are you prepared to catch the wave? Anyways, for the sake of time, let's move to the news. We have a lot to talk about today in regards to Nayib Bukele. And then, guys, we have a special edition Rumble X exclusive with our two guests today, Christine and Graham. We're going to be talking about some interesting topics, so stay tuned.
But tell them we're gonna switch off the YouTube stream in the culture, and we're gonna stream Rumble and Twitter only. So get prepared to switch platforms on us.
Absolutely. All right, everybody, let's get to news. We're gonna talk about the recent attack by the IMF on El Salvador. Why is the IMF so concerned about El Salvador? El Salvador is a very small country in Central America. It has a GDP of $32 billion. Just to kind of give you guys an idea, Elon Musk's net worth is 250 billion, right? El Salvador's GDP is only 32 billion. Why is one of the most powerful institutions in the world so concerned about El Salvador's Bitcoin law? Like, why do they keep attacking El Salvador? Well, we'll answer that question right in a bit. We'll be right back. We're going to hit the news. Let's check it out. Here we go.
Special shout out to our sponsor, Compass Mining.
They make Bitcoin mining accessible to everyone, from beginners to experienced investors. Their turnkey miners gets you online and hashing within 48 hours, making it easier than ever to start your mining journey. Plus, with their active marketplace, you can resell your miner at any time, adding flexibility and value to your investment. Visit their website to access a wealth of resources, learning everything you need to know about Bitcoin mining. Take your first step into the world of Bitcoin mining with confidence. Discover more at compassmining.io. Again, compassmining.io, and see how Compass Mining can power your success. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Foundation. It's self-custody done right. They built a premium grade hardware wallet called Passport right here in the US, and it integrates seamlessly with their free app called Envoy. Passport is fully open source and verifiable. It's the most intuitive Bitcoin wallet designed with a UX reminiscent of a classic feature phone, so you'll know how to navigate it and use it the moment you pick it up. It's also air-gapped, meaning Bitcoin stays offline, never touching an internet connection. It's Bitcoin only, open source verifiable, air-gap security model, gorgeous design craft, premium grade materials. Get your Bitcoin off exchanges and into your own hands in just a few minutes with Passport at foundation.xyz/simply. Get peace of mind for your piece of Bitcoin. All right, everybody, you want to take self-custody of your Bitcoin. Self-custody is a revolution. Opti's going to model it for you guys right now. It's a beautiful device. It's incredibly easy to use. It's convenient. So you get the benefits of cold storage, but you get the convenience of being able to spend cold storage Bitcoin only with the Passport, which connects seamlessly with the Envoy app on your iOS device or your Android device. Anyways, head over to Passport by Foundation Devices. Check the QR code, check the link in the video description. Use promo code SIMPLY. Get yourself an open source Bitcoin only hardware wallet. Not your keys, not your cheese. All right, everybody, let's talk about this. Latest news dropping by Reuters. IMF says Bitcoin remains key element in El Salvador program talks. Program talks between the IMF and El Salvador focus on strengthening reforms while addressing risks from the use of Bitcoin remains a key element of the discussions, the IMF said on Thursday. Quote, what we have recommended is a narrowing scope of the Bitcoin law, strengthening the regulatory framework and oversight of the Bitcoin ecosystem, and limiting public exposure to Bitcoin. Now, after everything that we just covered, I showed you guys the calculator. I showed you guys what's going on. Like, you would think, right, that, you know, this agency that's concerned about, you know, the well-beings of these up and coming countries, you would think like, wait, wouldn't you want them to adopt something like Bitcoin? Like what's going on there? That doesn't make sense. And anyways, let's take a look at some of the recent statements coming out of the IMF regards to updates on El Salvador. An International Monetary Fund mission led by Rafael Espinoza issued a statement following in-person and virtual discussions over the past months with the Salvadoran authorities. These discussions focus on policies that could be supported by an INF program to address macroeconomic imbalances and strengthen medium-term growth prospects and resilience. Quote, progress has been made in the negotiations towards a fund-supported program focused on policies to strengthen public finances. On the fiscal side, preliminary understandings have been reached on improving the primary balance by around 3.5% of GDP over a three-year period to place public debt on a sustainable path, right? So essentially what they're trying to do, what they're trying to frame is the IMF is the only way for all these low-income countries around the world to be able to improve their economies. That's what it boils down to. That's how they're framing it. And now what's hilarious about this report also, at the very bottom, it says, on Bitcoin, while many of the risks have not yet materialized, there is joint recognition that further efforts are needed to enhance transparency and mitigate potential fiscal and financial stability risks from the Bitcoin project. So what are those risks, right? So Michael Saylor has adopted a Bitcoin strategy. His company right now is leading the S&P 500 in terms of performance. El Salvador has made, they're talking about transparency. El Salvador has made their Bitcoin reserves public. What Western democracy has made their gold reserves public? We have to take their words for it. Bitcoin is transparent, an open ledger, right? And then the potential fiscal and financial stability, I would say that if your country doesn't make Bitcoin legal tender, continues on a fiat standard, that is a bigger risk to financial stability than not doing so. And if you look at the data, ever since El Salvador has made Bitcoin legal tender, their GDP has literally skyrocketed, not to mention the amount of crime that is happening in the country. It's reaching all-time lows. Keep in mind, this used to be the murder capital of the world, and it's gone down to 2.4 out of 100,000 inhabitants. That is safer than most big US cities, just to kind of give you guys a perspective how fast things turn around. Now, why is this happening? Like, why is the IMF still talking about Bitcoin? Why are they still trying to make the case that, hey, you need us in order for your economy to, stabilize and all this stuff? Well, it comes down to this. It comes down to the fact that if these small countries find an alternative to the IMF system, they will no longer be reliant on the IMF. Therefore, the IMF could no longer control these countries through predatory loans. And that's what it's all about. And that's why they're freaking out, where they're freaking out. And Nayib Bukele knows this, which is why he gave a big speech in regards to El Salvador reaching total financial independence. So check this out. El Salvador will no longer borrow external debt for budget funding. President Nayib Bukele announced that El Salvador will no longer require external debt to finance its budget, achieving financial independence during his Independence Day speech. This significant declaration was made as part of the celebrations marking El Salvador's 203rd anniversary of independence, which was highlighted in posts on X around the early hours of September 16th. Even the people in the comments know the IMF big mad for big mad, and the second comment, thank Bitcoin for that. So this is what it boils down to. This is why the IMF is so scared of Bitcoin. This is a tiny country. This is a country with a very small GDP, but it all boils down to power and control. And they can no longer.
Do you have the clip? We got the clip here. We should play the clip.
Could you pull it up?
Yeah, I got it right here. Just let me pull it up. This is hilarious.
All right, here we go.
All right, let's pull it in. Oh.
So on El Salvador, IMF staff have an ongoing engagement with the Salvadorian authorities, and the objective is to reach agreement on a new IMF-supported program that would help with the macroeconomic stabilization and adjustment, and also growth-enhancing reforms. Ongoing discussions are focused on policies to strengthen reforms that can be used to boost productivity and economic governance. Addressing risks arising from Bitcoin is a key element of these discussions. And of course, the goal is for the fund to be in a position to support a credible and well-sequenced policy package that is designed by the authorities. With respect to the details on Bitcoin, what we have recommended is a narrowing of the scope of the Bitcoin law, strengthening the regulatory framework and oversight of the Bitcoin ecosystem, and limiting the public sector exposure to Bitcoin.
They are out. Can you send that to me, Opti? Just drop that. Just drop that in the chat. Yeah. They're absolutely terrified. They're scared. Excuse my language. Shitless. I cannot believe, like, and again, like the pompous, the attitude from that lady. Like, it's like this macro stability that we're going to provide. The IMF has never been able to do this. They've bailed out Argentina like 3 or 4 times. The country continues to go into hyperinflation. If the IMF's strategies have worked, then how come any of these countries haven't pulled out? As soon as Nayib Bukele made Bitcoin legal tender, the crime dropped, the GDP skyrocketed, and now he's saying we're not going to borrow anymore from anyone else. And they're basically trying to say, listen, we're not going to give you money if you don't take away the Bitcoin law. And these are the same people lecturing us on democracy? Like, come on, dude. That's some bullshit in 4K. But I could hear the fear in that lady's voice. I could hear it because I'm telling you guys, this is an idea. This is a very powerful idea. And now it's infected the US economy through the ETF. Now Michael Saylor has proven that the Bitcoin strategy is superior. We've showed you guys the numbers in the beginning of the show, and they're terrified that this model gets proven on a nation state level, because all of a sudden people aren't going to be looking at the IMF and the World Bank anymore. And what people have to understand, and thank Alex Gladstein for a lot of his work on this, the IMF and the World Bank have been used as tools to exploit low-income countries. And they could no longer do that if those low-income countries transition to a Bitcoin standard. That's what it's all about. But the fear in that lady's voice was beautiful. It's a great way to end the Simply Bitcoin episode on Friday. Guys, we are going to transition exclusively to Rumble to talk to Christine and Graham. Christine was essential in helping Simply Bitcoin get the channel back when we were deplatformed on YouTube. So we're going to continue that conversation exclusively on X and exclusively on Rumble as well. So if you guys want to continue watching the show, head over to those platforms. But
yeah, Nico, I put the link in the chat, and for the replay value, we'll put the show episode in the description. I'll do that right now.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, everybody, we're going to transition to the culture, and we will see you guys in a second exclusively on Rumble and X, and of course, Nostr as well.